The Pistons have been playing much better as of late. Is this something that's sustainable? And what's leading to them play so much better since the All-Star break, really? We'll talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you have not already, head to our YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 2,000 subscribers. We are trying to show Locked On that we are the fastest and best growing fan base at the Locked On Network. So again, if you're listening to this on the podcast version or if you're watching this on YouTube, you haven't hit the subscribe button already, make sure you go ahead and go do that. It's the best way to support the podcast. I would really appreciate it. But the Detroit Pistons have been playing much better as of late. Now, we talked about in the last podcast, they just had their 3-game winning streak snapped against the Chicago Bulls, but they only lost that game by 6 points, and they were on a 3-game winning streak before that, which is pretty a big deal for a team like the Detroit Pistons. So what's leading to them playing so well? Is this something that's sustainable for the rest of the season? And we brought friend of the show, my former co-host over at Hashtag Pistons. Joe, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I just got out of bed right before we got started. I was laying in bed with the fiance, just watching some movies or whatever, just relaxing, man. But we have to talk about them Pistons at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's nice so we can talk about something other than sheer misery as a bit of a change of pace.
So, like you mentioned just now, the Pistons have been playing extremely well as of late. I believe they're 6-3 in their last 9 games. They were 6-2. They lost to the Chicago Bulls recently. A few podcasts ago, I talked about how they had been just below 500 since the turn of the year. And games that Kate Cunningham had played, I believe they're 12-15 now since the change of the new year. So, Joe, what do you think is the leading cause to the Pistons playing well as of late? Is it just Kate Cunningham spearheading it? Is the overall team getting better? Individual guys getting better? Coaching staff coaching better? Like, what do you think that you've seen so far is leading to them looking like a better team?
I think a big part of it is just guys are hitting more shots. It's not a secret that for a long time at the start of the season, Saddiq Bey and Jeremy Grant were both just playing really terribly. Now, Saddiq started to pick up his play quite a bit before this better streak started, but that's definitely a big reason. When you look at early in the season, we don't need to rehash too much. You talked about it plenty on here that he was awful out of the gates, and Jeremy Grant had not been good for most of the season, and those two guys have picked it up, and a few other guys have just shot the ball better, which obviously that's partially just kind of regression to the mean. But I do think that the spearheaded aspect of it is that you're really seeing Kate Cunningham start to put it together. And it's something that I think we even talked about it the first time I came on here with you, because I was towards the front end of the season. And my basic take was, you look at this roster, this team is going to be really bad, almost no matter what. And really the only thing that could change that is if Cade Cunningham is that unique level of good, where even as a 19, 20-year-old rookie, he's that kind of dude, like Luka Doncic level good. And out of the gates, obviously, Cade was not that. Obviously, right out of the gates, he was awful. He couldn't hit anything. Then even after that, for a while, he clearly was kind of figuring stuff out. And I think over the past few weeks or whatever it's been, it's going on a month now, getting close to that. He's really started to you can see that he's figuring stuff out. He's really finding his groove. He's finding his spots. He's really kind of come to full grips with the fact that, he can get by almost anybody. And that he's big and strong enough that he can get into the paint and he can just body the vast majority of guards and even a lot of wings in the league, and that's just kind of stuff that it takes time. And for most guys, that takes, at least a full season, oftentimes 2 or even 3 before they start to really look as advanced as Cade has looked. But I think it's just a testament to just how advanced he is just as a basketball player in terms of his feel and intelligence for the game and the way he approaches it. And he's still not perfect. There's still plenty of places that he has to be learning and improving, obviously, most notably, even through this stretch. His scoring efficiency has only been okay. But obviously the free throw issue has something to do with that, which is criminal, which you've talked about that ad nauseum. But that really is the key factor to me, is just that, you think about just how good he is. He's a true offensive engine, like a true number one option. And the fact that even with some of the flaws, even with some of the blemishes that occasionally pop up, the fact that he is this level of good at this age, that's pretty remarkable. That does not happen very often, that guys his age are this level of good.
No, yeah, I agree with you. I said this on Twitter, I believe 2 days ago, that other players are starting to play better. Guys are starting to make a little bit more shots. I mentioned, I believe on last week's podcast, one of the episodes, that the Pistons, quote unquote, big three of Cade Cunningham, Jeremy Grant, Sadiq Bey had all been playing much better together. They had like a net rating of like 11.2 at that point of the podcast. I don't know what it is right now, but they were starting to play together. So it wasn't just Cade Cunningham looking better, but I agree that I checked this mostly up to Cade Cunningham really just spearheading a big change of direction with the Pistons and how well they've been playing. So something that you mentioned that I really want to bring up is that he's realizing that he's bigger. Most of the time, he's stronger than these guys. He's a good finisher around the rim. He can finish with both hands. He can get to the rim basically whenever he wants, even though he's not the, I guess, high level athlete that Jalen Green is, whatever, like people said before the draft, but he could get to the rim whenever he wants, basically anyways. And this was something that I want to give him credit for specifically, because at the beginning of the season, I mentioned it. We wanted to watch it throughout the season, and that a lot of his field goal attempts were coming from beyond the arc at the beginning of the season. He was relying on his 3-point shot a lot at the beginning of the season. And I mentioned that was something that he needed to start trying to figure out how to balance out more middies, more shots at the rim, try to balance out his shot diet to where he's not just so reliant on the 3-point arc. And over the last 9 games where he's really taken off, he's averaging 21 points a game, 7.3 rebounds, 5.6 assists a game. In these last 9 games, he's shooting 19 field goal attempts. Only 5 of those are from beyond the arc. So 1/4 of his shot attempts are coming from beyond the arc. Before, it was over half of his shot attempts towards the beginning of the season, the first 20 or so games, was over half of his attempts were coming beyond the arc. So I think that has a big thing to do with it. He's realizing that he's, like you mentioned, he's taller, he's longer, he's bigger, he's stronger, and he's just really good at getting to the rim. He knows how to change the speed. He's learning how to orchestrate pick and rolls. I feel like him and Isaiah Stewart were starting to figure out something in the pick and roll where Isaiah Stewart was really sealing off his guy on the way to rim, on the way to drives for Cade Cunningham. But overall, bigger point is that I feel like Cade is really the one that's really spearheaded this run by the Pistons right now. Now, I don't know if this is sustainable. We'll talk about that in the upcoming segment, if this is sustainable. But yeah, I think Cade Cunningham, obviously some other guys, like you mentioned, other guys are starting to play a little bit better. Sadiq Bey has already been playing pretty good over the last 30 or so games, but he's picked it up. Jeremy's starting to take a little bit of a backseat, I feel like, and starting to let Cade take over as the team. Before he got hurt, Killian Hayes even strung a couple games that were pretty nice. You have a few games from Isaiah Stewart as well. Marvin Bagley really seems to have been a good pickup. All these things are contributing to it, but I agree. I think it just really is just spearheaded completely by Cade Cunningham, and he's really starting to make his imprint, not just the team, but the community, his trainer, which we talked about in the last podcast. Cade and his camp. I've seen people say that LCA is starting to get more packed this season, when I really feel like it has a lot to do with Cade and his camp really trying to be active in the community and push guys to make it be cool to be a Pistons fan again. So I think everything that you've seen over the last month or so has been just spearheaded by Cade, and it's on and off the court. I'll give you a chance to respond to all that when we come back from the break, and then we'll talk about, is this sustainable for the Detroit Pistons? And should Pistons fans want it to be sustainable going into the last quarter of the season? I believe just under last quarter of the season. But first, before we get into that, I have to tell you guys about one of our sponsors. That's BetOnline.net. It's that time of year again, as college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is a continued source for all your sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. That means NHL, football when it eventually comes back, and I think today, I'm not a big MLB guy, but I'm pretty sure I got the update today. The MLB is back. So you'll be able to have fun. If you guys are baseball fans out there, you guys will be able to have fun at BetOnline.net with the MLB now too. Make sure you head to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action today. Again, head to the website today, BetOnline.net, or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action today. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you have not already, head to our YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. We are on our way to 2,000 subscribers. We're continuing to show Locked On that we're the fastest and best growing fan base at the Locked On Network. So again, I'd really appreciate it. Head to the Locked On Pistons YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast. Joe, before we get into the next topic, I want to give you is there anything else you want to respond with before we move on?
Yeah, sure. The kind of, it's just to touch on the way that you were talking about the fact that he's relying way less on a 3-point shot. And that's also had an impact with, now the assist numbers haven't gone up a ton. They have gone up a bit, but I think that that's a big part of why he's so much more effective as a sort of main engine of the whole offense, is because he's getting that penetration. He's not just a guy who's jacking up threes. He's got confidence to knife into the paint and then find guys. And then kind of connected to that is, you talked about his athleticism. I think, he's not a white guy, so you're not supposed to use this to describe him. But I genuinely think that the best way is he's sneaky athletic, because he's so lanky that he doesn't look like he's going that fast. Like you see this with football players a lot, where there's some wide receivers or quarterbacks that they're so tall that they don't look like they're going that fast, but then they're able to outrun people, right? Just because their strides are so long. And it's not like he's moving super quick and explosive, but like when he jumps, he hangs in the air as long as anybody. He's obviously he's not like Blake Griffin out here, but like he stays up in the air. He finishes over guys all the time, and he clearly has a quick enough first step that he gets around people. And I think that people underestimated his athleticism just because he's so lanky that it doesn't look explosive and it doesn't look fast. But his steps are so long that it's hard to stay in front of him. And obviously also he's just so physical. So, but that can kind of tie into what you wanted to talk to next. So you can go into that.
Yeah. So, and again, we've talked about his athleticism a few times on the podcast. They, before the draft, people were saying, I forget who it was it Jay Billis who said he's not, I guess you would just have to settle for him being a very good athlete, not an elite one. And he's been a pretty good athlete for the Pistons. And again, he's spearheading this run from them on the court and off the court, in the community, all this stuff.
To be fair, I was kind of on that boat before the draft. I had real concerns about it because, some people ended up being right about this, that in college, he didn't always get all the way to the hoop. And the main sort of counter to that was none of the guys on his team could shoot. So they were just overloading the paint towards him. But to me, that's always a really big red flag for guys who struggle to get around dudes in college, right? Like I remember in our group chat sending some videos, and there were a couple of plays where there was some no-name white dude who was guarding him, and he struggled to get around him. I was like, look, this is a problem. It's concerning to me. And I was dead wrong about it. Anybody who said that was dead wrong. I just wanted to be, forward about it. But I had real questions about it coming into this season, and I'm not worried about it at all anymore. I think he's a well above average NBA athlete.
Yes, sir. So, is this play sustainable by the Detroit Pistons? Again, they're 6-3 in their last 9 games. They've been pretty good since the All-Star break, and since the change of the new year, when Cade is on the floor, they're 12-15. So, Joe, do you think that this play from them that you've seen over the last 9 games, really since the change of the year, when Cade plays, because he did deal with that injury, they had a few injuries along the way as well with Jeremy and a couple other guys. Killian's been in and out of the lineup. Marvin Bagley, even when he got here, he missed like 2 or 3 games after he got here. Frank Jackson's been out for a while. So they've been dealing with injuries and still have been playing much better. Do you think that this is a sustainable type of level of play? And when I say sustainable, I'll give you like a bar, like a 500 level type of basketball, not like some 700 basketball or anything, but like just basic like average team, 500 basketball. Do you think they can play like that the rest of the season, or will play like that the rest of the season?
I would say 500 ball the rest of the way might be a little bit much. I'm just because my guess is, and we may already be starting to see this with Sadiq. The last 2 games, he was not that good. And my guess is that he is going to have come back down to earth kind of towards basically my working theory with Sadiq is that he's a good shooter, but he's a streaky shooter. And so he's going to have stretches where he's awesome. He's going to have some stretches where he's less good. So my guess is that he was in a really hot stretch for a while, and I wouldn't be shocked if he comes down to earth. And just in general, I think their defense has been a little bit better than they really deserved it to be. But that said, I definitely think that there's something, like I said about Cade, is that I think that something has clicked with him. And, when you talk about can they keep it up, like you said earlier, it's not like Cade has just happened to start shooting like 45% from three over the last 2 weeks, right? Like if that's what was happening, that'd be like, look, this is fun. This is great. I'm enjoying it, but he's probably not going to shoot 45% from three the rest of the season. But that's not what's happening. He really has made a genuine change to his game in the way that he has been playing. So I think that that's the type of thing that I think 500 ball is probably a little bit too much to expect just because the team is still so young in so many different places. They're still so inexperienced, and you really see that with consistency. And it's like I have a little bit of a reputation of not liking Saddiq Bey, so I should be clear. I've really been impressed by Saddiq Bey this season. This stretch he's had has really shown something, but it's just when you're young and inexperienced, part of the deal with that is you're going to be inconsistent. You're going to have some ups and downs. So I'd be surprised if they played 500 ball the rest of the year. But I absolutely think that they're going to be there's how many games are there left? They played 62, right?
I believe 17.
Okay. So I wouldn't be surprised if they won 7 of those games, right? If like 7 and 10, which that's not too far below 500, but that's the basic idea is just, I wouldn't be shocked if they were not too far from it. I just would be surprised if they were all the way there just because my guess is they're going to have at least one stretch yet of like 3 or 4 games where Cade is just going to not be good, just simply put, because as much as we can be impressed by him and such, he is still 20 years old. And in addition, teams are going to be more aware of him, and they're going to start to make adjustments to him, obviously.
So I basically agree with you. I don't think they'll be playing at 500 basketball the rest of the year, and a few reasons for that. One, I do expect some dudes to fall back to earth a little bit, and Saddiq was one of them. Like he's been absolutely absurd over the last 30 games or so. But I mean, if he doesn't fall back to earth, I mean, okay, then you'll take it, obviously. But you have to assume that at some point, some of these guys are going to start to fall back a little bit. And I think Saddiq will eventually start to come down a little bit from back to earth. Also, another big reason I think is, and it's not even just about people falling back to earth, they're dealing with a lot of injuries right now to some key guys that help them out. They got, right now, as of us recording this on what's today, Thursday night, Omari Sankofa, which one is he? The Free Press, the beat writer for the Free Press. He just tweeted out that Killian Hayes, Hamidou Diallo, Rodney Magruder, Frank Jackson, and Isaiah Stewart are all out tomorrow. Isaiah Stewart obviously has that bone bruise in his knee. I don't know what's going on with Killian exactly. He got kneed in the groin like 2 games ago, and he's been out since then. I don't know if that's anything serious or not. Diallo's back on out. Something wrong with his hand. He hurt that in the previous game. And Frank Jackson has been out for a while now with these back spasms. I don't know. It's still his back spasm. So they're going to be dealing with injuries to some key guys. So that's one of the reasons why I don't think they'll be able to just stay around 500 basketball. But I do agree. I think they probably will win like 6 of their final 17 games, somewhere around there. I think that would be good for them. But either way, I mean, this is kind of go full circle all the way back to my very first podcast before the season, was that I said that the Pistons could improve at every area and still finish at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. And, we hadn't seen that for a while, but now we're at the end of the season. Now I'm basically going to be able to say it again at the end of the season. The Pistons can play better basketball down the end of the season. They can see improved play from all these guys that they've been seeing. They can play better throughout the rest of the season and still only end up winning 6 games simply because they're going to make mistakes. They're a young team. They're dealing with injuries. And they're likely, like you said, young guys, they're not likely to be consistent. They're going to have inconsistencies, ups and downs. So I do love the play that they've had over the last month or so and how they've played with Cade Cunningham since the turn of the year. But even with Cade in the lineup since the turn of the year, they've been slightly below 500. So I think they'll hover somewhere around there. It's been nice to see a stretch over the last 10 games where they're 6-4. But I don't expect that to continue, and it doesn't have to continue. And the reason why it doesn't have to continue is the topic we'll get into this next segment is, should Pistons fans want them to continue to play above this 500? Like, should they want them to go 6-3 every 9 games? Should they want that, or should they want the Pistons to start? Okay, chill out a little bit. Like we still need some lottery odds. Let's take it easy a little bit. Which one should the Pistons fans want? We'll talk about that when we come back. But first, I have to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors. Your guys' favorite sponsor, Built Bar. This is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right, and it's thanks to Built Bar. It almost feels like it's not even really a resolution, to be honest, because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you guys ever tried the Puffs bar? And if you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting protein bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallows. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they're an absolute treat. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate. And it's not just the Puff bars. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, 100% real chocolate. It's low calorie and high proteins. Replace your candy bars with these. They taste better and they're better for you. Go to Built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be absolutely blown away. High protein, low calories. High fiber, low carbs. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. And they have all kinds of flavors too, like mint brownie, coconut almond. The new flavor of the month this month is white chocolate cookies and cream. You guys know my favorite is peanut butter. They got cherry barcia, strawberry, all kinds of different flavors. Make sure you guys are constantly checking out Built.com because they come out with limited time flavors all the time. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how they do it, but they pull it off every single time. So go to Built.com and use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to our YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It's the best way to support the podcast. I'd really appreciate it. Just real quick before we even get into this final segment, real quick, we might have a special guest coming on soon in the next few weeks. I'm gonna try to work my magic behind the scenes. You feel me? So make sure you guys stay tuned to all that right there. But Joe, final segment, final topic here. We're talking about how well the Pistons have played over the last 10 games, how well Cade Cunningham has looked, how great he has looked, and how he really does look like the franchise icon of this team. And he's really absorbed that. His camp has really absorbed that. They're being active in the Pistons community. They're trying to make it cool to be a Pistons fan again, which is why I'm going to keep saying, I really do feel like that's what they're doing. And people are wanting to watch the Pistons just because of Cade Cunningham. Like, I see people across the national media everywhere talking about, check out the Pistons. Cade Cunningham's going crazy. Like, before, that wasn't happening. No one wanted to watch the Pistons. No one wanted to go to Pistons games. Now you got people going to Pistons games. You got the LCA getting bigger and bigger. You got people across the United States wanting to check out the Pistons because of Cade Cunningham. And despite all of this, should Pistons fans want the Pistons to chill out just a little bit over these last 16, 17 games? Because at the end of the day, they are not a complete team yet. They do not have all their pieces. They are still quite a few pieces away, even though they may have the piece right now. And part of that can be answered in the draft this upcoming offseason, where the Pistons currently have the third highest odds in the draft. And I believe they had the second most odds last year, and they ended up with number 1. Right now, there are 2 games ahead of OKC for the third pick. They're a game behind Houston at 2 and 1.5 games behind Orlando at 1. And before I even let Joe go ahead, we're just going to go ahead and click sim this little lottery simulator just to see if some good things happen. Nope, they fall down to 4. I swear to God, guys, every single time I do this, nothing good ever happens. All year last year, every time I did, they fell down and they ended up winning. So maybe that's a good thing. Either way, Joe, should Pistons fans want this team to win games? Or should they be taking the position of, okay, this is fun, but let's chill out just a tad?
I mean, if they keep winning games the way that they have been, then I think that you're a loser if you're upset about it, quite frankly. Like, the whole point of tanking is to get young players that are going to help you win. That's the whole point. And so if you're winning because Cade Cunningham is that dude, and Saddiq Bey, let's just say they play 500 ball the rest of the year. That means that Saddiq Bey keeps up what he's been doing for the last month or so the rest of the season. And guess what that means? that means that I might be wrong about Sadiq Bey. He might not just be a streaky shooter who will have good and bad stretches. He might actually be, what some people were saying when they drafted him, and I poo-pooed it a bunch. Like, what if he actually is going to be like a Chris Middleton type? And this is where he's breaking out into that. Like, if they win a bunch of games the rest of the season, that's what that means. So guess what? Why are you mad about that? So, yeah, that would be my response to it is, obviously at a base level, you hope they get a high draft pick, but especially with the way things are now, the lottery odds are better for teams that are higher up regardless. So it doesn't make as big of a difference either way. And if you're winning because your young players are playing well, I'm going to be happy with that. Because here's the other thing to remember, right, is when you look at it historically, the number of draft picks that don't work out, they clearly hit on Cade Cunningham. No matter who it is, there's a pretty good chance that the Pistons are going to flop with their draft pick this summer, just realistically speaking. So I'm more concerned about the guys who are on the roster, who are already here, that are showing promise. If that's what happens, then good. And, the other thing that's worth remembering is that, with where they are in the standings, I mean, it'd be pretty shocking if they fell further than fourth, really. I mean, just realistically speaking, that'd be pretty remarkable if they fell further than that. So they were so bad for so much of the season that it's not like they're going to end up with like the 8th pick. They're almost certainly going to end up with a top 5 pick still. And my understanding is that this draft has, there's a couple of guys at the very top that stand out. But my understanding is that it's got quite a few really good talents that are going to be at the top of the draft, not just like 1 or 2. So I'm not worried about it. If the Pistons are winning because Cade Cunningham is that guy and the other young guys, Sadiq Bey, Killian comes back, he plays better, et cetera, like Marvin Bagley really is that much of a difference maker offensively. If that's how you're winning games, then if you're upset about it, you're a loser. And I question what do you watch basketball for? Like, what are you doing here, man? No, I'm serious. I'm just sick of this because I get this on my Reddit posts too. And it's like, what do you do? They're like, oh, we better hope the Bulls beat us. Like, go outside, man. Like, what are you doing with your life? You're literally sitting here hoping that Sadiq Bey misses an open 3 at the end of the game so that you get a – that's just stupid. Like, your young player – this is exactly what we've asked for. The young players are playing – they're the ones leading the charge. This is not – no, he's played better recently, but this has not been Jeremy Grant leading the charge. He's really taken on a tertiary role recently. And I'd still probably lean towards not keeping him just because he's older by quite a bit. But the role he's played recently, I would be more open to him staying long-term if he's willing to take on that role where Cade is clearly the number 1 dude, right? Like, it's not 1A, 1B. It's Cade is 1 and 2. And Jeremy's going to be 3rd. He's taken a lot more spot-up attempts recently. Like, if that's the type of role he's going to be in, I'm less upset about him being here long-term. I still think he's older by enough that I'd rather not. But, it's just like, if you're winning because the future of the team is playing well, then that's good. Not only is that okay, that is good. So don't be a loser. Don't be a dweeb. Have fun. That's the point of sports.
No, yeah, I completely agree with what you said. Now, I'll say this. One of you guys tweeted at me and was like, after the loss of the Bulls, I said, yeah, well, the Pistons probably needed this loss. One of you guys tweeted at me and was like, didn't you just say screw the tank? No, listen. Yes, it's screw the tank if Cade Cunningham's going to go crazy and these young guys are going to get better. But if they happen to lose games, there you go. You also have a win-win there. Yeah, it's a win-win.
I see this as an all-around win.
Yeah, there you go. It's just as long as we're not seeing it led by Corey Joseph getting 37 minutes, we're all good. Jeremy Grant taking 27 shots, we're all good. As long as stuff like that isn't happening, we're all straight around here. If these guys, like you mentioned, everything that you said is correct. If these guys keep playing well, the young guys keep playing well and spearheading this improvement and these wins, then just be happy and be happy with the kind of play you're seeing and be happy with what you're seeing from Cade Cunningham and these young guys, because you haven't had a lot of that in Detroit the past few years. You just haven't. So the fact that you're getting it, be happy about it, enjoy it. And like I said a few podcasts ago, if it's meant to be for the Pistons to get the number 1 overall pick, they'll get the number 1 overall pick. They didn't have the top odds last year, and they ended up with number 1. it is what it is. The top 4 picks all have 14% chance, whatever. I believe all the top 4 picks have a 50-50 chance of being top 5. So, I mean, it is what it is. If the Pistons are going to get a top pick, they're going to get a top pick. It is what it is. If they don't, they don't. It's not too crazy to be worried about. Be happy about what you're seeing with these guys, because these are guys that are here right now. If they're getting better, then that's good for your future. Before we go, Joe, I asked you this in the last one because I believe it was a few months ago, you let me know this is something you do on your Substack after every game. So now I like asking you anytime I can talk to you. What do you call it? The belief-o-meter?
The Killian Hayes belief-o-meter.
So everyone that listens to the podcast knows I'm pretty high in Killian, but I find this whole segment that Joe does absolutely hilarious. Like Joe could have his belief-o-meter at 0, but I still think it would be like the most excellent idea and segment to ever have. Like this, I'm mad that I didn't come up with it before him. But before you go, Joe, you just gotta let us know where you at in the belief-o-meter. How do you scale that thing? How is it, like 1 to 10? Is it like KILLI? Like how's it go?
It's like the points on Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's nonsense and the points don't matter. But my Killian Hayes belief-o-meter sits somewhere between the eternal pit of negative expectations and maybe not being terrible. That's where I'm at with him. Just like, and because it's kind of in the same situation that it's been in, really, where he clearly is showing stuff defensively. And, and I've tweeted it a couple of times recently, too, that it's a little tough to watch him because lately he's been doing so much stuff right. A lot of the little stuff you look for. He moves the ball well on offense. He takes decent shots. He plays really hard and really effective defense. But, like, the ball got to go in the hoop at some point, young man. Like, didn't he have, like, 3 straight games where he didn't score? And it's just like, the ball got to go in the hoop. Like, look, I am basketball nerd Twitter. Look at this. This is the face of Vorp Twitter, basically, right? A chubby white guy who's actually awful at basketball, right? I can't jump over a phone book, especially post-knee surgery. I love the guys that do all the little stuff so I can be like, oh, yeah, I'm smarter than you because I look beyond the box score. You got to put the ball in the basket, man. If you can't score, you can't play. And with the defensive ability he's shown, he doesn't need to get a lot of points in order to carve out a role for himself in the league. But the thing is that even if he ends up being able to make himself a career, like a nice career as a sort of defensive specialist guard off the bench, like, I don't know, Michael Curry type, or now Gary Payton for the Warriors is starting to look like he's doing that. If that's where he ends up, that doesn't matter for the Pistons, right? Realistically speaking, when you look at guys who get drafted by a team and they end up disappointing that far, even if they end up having decent careers, it's not with the team who drafted them. So for him to really matter for the Pistons rebuild, he needs to get up to starter level or at least like 6th man level. And I don't really see that. I want to hold on to that slimmer of hope, but I mean, the reality is the dude scored like 13 points the other night and people were acting like he just won MVP, right? Which it was exciting. I enjoyed that too. Like I enjoyed how against the Pacers, Tyrese Halliburton shot an awful shot at the end of the game to blow the game for them, which Killian Hayes did not do. He did not do that because he wasn't on the floor at the end of the game, admittedly. But, I will take no other evidence at this time, Your Honor. So it's just, it's fine. I like his defense. I hold on to that small sliver of hope, but when the fan base is getting that excited about the fact that a dude scored 13 points, that tells you just how bad it is, because you got to put the ball in the hoop at some point, and maybe he will, but the belief-o-meter is like, it's pretty low. It's pretty much in the black pit of negative expectations. That's where it is.
All right. We had to get the belief-o-meter on here. We just had to. All right, Joe. Thank you for coming on, man. I appreciate it. Make sure you let everyone know where they can find you on Twitter and where they can find your little Substack when you write your game recaps.
So you can find me on Twitter at Joe_Truck. It's on the screen. If you're watching on YouTube, which you should be watching on YouTube and subscribing, this man's got bills to pay. And if you want to read me, I have a Substack. It's just Joe Truck Substack. Also, all my stuff goes on the Pistons Reddit, which is our Detroit Pistons. And I also put stuff on PistonPowered still occasionally. So, yeah. Or follow me on Twitter just for the memes,
There you go. Make sure you guys go check all that out. Thank you, Joe, for coming on, man. I appreciate you, man. Always coming on. I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. Again, like he mentioned, make sure you go to our YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Make sure you guys make Locked On NBA your second listen of every single day. Your Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. And Pistons play a game today. Who are they going against today? Do you know who they're going
against? The Boston Celtics tonight, Koo. I already wrote
that's going to be fun. I feel like we've played them 5 times in the last 2 weeks. But
you want to know what's important about this? We need Cade to play well here, because if he really kills it, then Bill Simmons will talk about how awesome he is on his podcast. And you know that Bill Simmons he impacts that type of thing. So if Cade wants to win Rookie of the Year, this is a big night for him to make an impact. Because there's a lot of significant media figures that watch Boston Celtics games. Let's just be real. An inordinate amount of NBA media started out as Boston people. So if he goes out and he really shows out, and in particular, those are the people that are all about Evan Mobley too. Like Bill Simmons, Kevin O'Connor, all the Ringer people, they're obsessed with Evan Mobley. So if Cade goes out there and he kicks ass, we're going to be in good shape, and we're gonna swing this narrative.
So Cade, if you're somehow listening to this, go out there and show up for us, man. We need it.
His trainer might be listening to it.
Oh, yeah. Aston might be listening to it. Aston, you hear this?
Yeah, Aston. Tell Cade, this is his moment. That Rookie of the Year isn't going to win itself. We've had nothing for 15 years. We need this. All right?
All right, guys. All right, guys.
Also, please remember that Boston is a bad place filled with bad people. So they deserve to lose. They deserve pain and no happiness. This is not satire. Boston is bad, and so are people from Boston.
Fair enough. I can and can't. I nor can or cannot sign that sentiment. Thanks, guys, for listening, man. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Check out Joe on Twitter. Thank you for listening to the podcast, man. I'll catch you guys later on the next one. And until then, enjoy the game tonight, and peace out, everybody. Stay safe.